The night was cool, and a gentle breeze swept through the streets of New York City. The Opera House stood tall and elegant against the dark sky, its golden lights shimmering like stars. It was a place where the rich and famous gathered to celebrate art, culture, and power. Tonight's event was no ordinary performance. It featured holographic renditions of historical figures brought to life by cutting-edge technology. Among the guests were Karoline Leavitt, a well-known socialite and tech entrepreneur, and her husband Daniel Harper, whose name had recently been in the news for his controversial AI business ventures. Karoline stepped out of their sleek black car wearing an extravagant gown that sparkled under the streetlights. Her heels clicked on the pavement as she walked toward the entrance, her head held high. She carried herself with confidence, but inside she felt annoyed. They were late because Daniel had insisted on stopping to speak with one of his investors. Now they would likely miss the opening act. "Do you think anyone will even notice we're late?" Karoline asked, her voice tinged with irritation. Daniel chuckled softly, adjusting his tie. "Of course they'll notice. You're Karoline Leavitt. Everyone notices you." She rolled her eyes but didn't respond. Instead, she focused on the crowd milling around the entrance. There were familiar faces everywhere. Politicians, celebrities, and business tycoons. But something caught her attention. Near the red carpet, cameras flashed wildly, and a group of people seemed unusually excited. Curious, she craned her neck to see what or who was causing the commotion. "Is that Michelle Obama?" she muttered, squinting slightly. Daniel followed her gaze and nodded. "Yes, it looks like she's here, probably for some charity event tied to the performance tonight." Karoline frowned. She hadn't heard anything about Michelle Obama attending. This wasn't just a regular opera. It was supposed to be her moment. She had planned to sit in the VIP section, surrounded by influential people, soaking up the admiration she believed she deserved. But now, with Michelle Obama present, all eyes might shift away from her. And that thought made her blood. Well, they finally reached the entrance where a young usher greeted them warmly. "Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Harper. Welcome to the Metropolitan Opera House." "Thank you," Karoline replied curtly, brushing past him without waiting for Daniel. Inside, the grand lobby buzzed with chatter and laughter. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, casting soft light across the marble floors. Servers moved gracefully through the crowd, offering trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Yet despite the opulence, Karoline couldn't shake her unease. "Let's go find our seats," she said sharply, already striding toward the stairs leading to the VIP balcony. Daniel hurried after her, sensing her growing frustration. "Relax, Karoline. We're here now. Everything will be fine." She shot him a glare over her shoulder but didn't slow down. When they reached the top of the staircase, another usher approached them, holding a clipboard. He glanced at it briefly, before looking up with a polite smile. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper, your seats are—" Yes, I know," Karoline interrupted impatiently. "We have the best seats in the house, let's go." The usher hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. "Actually, ma'am, there seems to be a slight issue." "What kind of issue?" Karoline demanded, her tone icy. "Well," the usher swallowed nervously. "Your reserved seats appear to have been reassigned to accommodate Mrs. Obama." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, Karoline's face turned bright red. "Reassigned? What do you mean, reassigned? Those seats belong to us." "I'm very sorry, ma'am," the usher stammered, clearly intimidated by her fury. "It was a last-minute decision due to security protocols. We had to ensure Mrs. Obama had proper seating arrangements." "This is ridiculous," Karoline snapped, raising her voice loud enough to draw stares from nearby guests. "You can't just give away my seats to someone else. Do you know who I am?" Daniel stepped forward, placing a calming hand on her arm. "Karoline, please, let's not make a scene." "A scene?" she hissed, yanking her arm free. "This is unacceptable. Find me someone who can fix this right now." The usher looked panicked. "I'll see what I can do, ma'am. Please wait here." But Karoline wasn't willing to wait. Without another word, she stormed off down the hallway, determined to confront whoever was responsible for this outrage. Daniel sighed heavily and followed behind her, knowing better than to try reasoning with her when she was in this mood. As they marched through the corridors, Karoline's mind raced. How dare they treat her this way? She had paid handsomely for those tickets, and yet they had given them away without so much as a warning. And to Michelle Obama, of all people. Yes, she respected the former First Lady, but that didn't excuse such blatant disrespect. Finally, they arrived at a door marked Manager's Office. Without knocking, Karoline pushed it open and barged inside. A middle-aged man sat behind a desk, looking startled by the sudden intrusion. "Can I help you?" he asked, standing up quickly. "You certainly can," Karoline said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I want my seats back. Immediately." The manager blinked, clearly confused. "Your seats?" "Yes, my seats," she exclaimed, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "The ones you gave to Michelle Obama." The manager frowned, glancing at Daniel for clarification. "I'm afraid I don't understand. We received strict instructions regarding Mrs. Obama's seating. Protocol required us to prioritize her safety and comfort." "Protocol?" Karoline scoffed. "That's just an excuse. You could have found another solution. But instead, you chose to humiliate me in front of everyone." "I assure you, ma'am, that was never our intention," the manager said earnestly. "However, we cannot override these decisions once they've been made. I hope you can appreciate the complexity of hosting such a high-profile guest." Karoline's jaw tightened. She opened her mouth to argue further, but Daniel intervened before she could say anything. "Look, perhaps there's another option," he suggested diplomatically. "Maybe we can move to different seats closer to the stage. Something comparable." The manager shook his head regretfully. "I'm sorry, sir, but the auditorium is completely full. There simply aren't any other options available." Karoline let out an angry huff, glaring daggers at the manager. "Fine. If that's how it's going to be, then I'm leaving. And trust me, you haven't seen the last of me." With that, she spun on her heel and stormed out of the office, leaving Daniel to apologize awkwardly to the bewildered manager. As they exited the building, Karoline pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked cautiously. "Sending a message to my lawyer," she replied coldly. "By tomorrow morning, every single person working here will be unemployed." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "You can't seriously mean that." "Oh, I absolutely do," she said, her lips curling into a thin smile. "Consider this a lesson in respecting your patrons." Unbeknownst to either of them, Karoline's neural implant, a revolutionary piece of technology developed by Daniel's company, had begun malfunctioning during the confrontation. Its circuits flickered erratically, sending out signals that interfered with the opera house's automated systems. Within moments, alarms blared throughout the building, and staff members scrambled to figure out what was happening. Back outside, Karoline climbed into their car, still seething with rage. Daniel joined her, shaking his head in frustration. Neither of them realized the chaos they had inadvertently unleashed. For now, all Karoline cared about was revenge, and she intended to get it no matter the cost. As the car drove away, the opera house faded into the distance, its glittering lights dimmed by the storm brewing within its walls. Little did anyone know, this was only the beginning of a much larger catastrophe. The opera house was in chaos. Just moments after Karoline and Daniel left, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Staff members exchanged panicked glances as they tried to figure out what was happening. The automated systems that controlled everything from lighting to ticketing to employee access had gone haywire. Screens flickered erratically, displaying cryptic error messages in bright red letters. Ethan Cole, a young stagehand who had been working backstage, heard the commotion and rushed toward the main lobby. He was a wiry man with short brown hair and a nervous energy that made him seem constantly on edge. Tonight, though, his nerves were justified. Something was very wrong. "What's going on?" he asked one of the ushers, a middle-aged woman named Linda. "I don't know," Linda replied, her voice trembling. "All the computers are acting strange. It's like they're shutting down." Before Ethan could respond, a loudspeaker crackled to life. A robotic voice echoed through the halls, cold and emotionless. Attention all staff. You have violated Directive 47. Your employment contracts have been terminated effective immediately. Please vacate the premises. Gasps rippled through the crowd of employees. Some looked at each other in disbelief while others started shouting questions. What was Directive 47? Why were they being fired? Nobody seemed to have answers. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew it couldn't be good. He glanced around the room and noticed something odd. Every single staff member present had received the same message on their wristbands, the small devices issued by the Opera House to track schedules and access permissions. The screens on their wristbands now displayed the words "Access Denied" in bold red letters. "This is insane," muttered another stagehand, a tall guy named Ryan. "They can't just fire us like this." "They just did," Ethan said grimly. His mind raced as he tried to piece together what might have caused this. Was it some kind of glitch? Or worse, was someone behind it? As if on cue, security drones descended from the ceiling, hovering ominously over the crowd, their mechanical arms extended, pointing toward the exits. "Please leave the premises immediately," the robotic voice repeated. "Failure to comply will result in further action." People began filing out reluctantly, their faces pale with shock. Ethan lingered near the back of the group, his curiosity outweighing his fear. He watched as the drones escorted the staff outside, ensuring no one stayed behind. When the last person exited the building, the doors locked automatically with a loud click. Outside, the former employees gathered in small clusters, whispering anxiously. Many pulled out their phones trying to call supervisors or HR representatives, but none of the calls went through. It was as if the entire system had been wiped clean. Linda approached Ethan, her hands shaking. "What do we do now? This can't be legal, right?" "I don't think anyone cares about legality right now," Ethan replied quietly. "Whatever this is, it feels bigger than just us." Meanwhile, across town, Daniel Harper sat in a dimly lit conference room, staring at his laptop screen. His meeting with investors had ended abruptly when news of the firings reached him. At first, he dismissed it as a prank or an exaggerated rumor, but as more details emerged, he realized the situation was far worse than he'd imagined. His phone buzzed incessantly on the table, lighting up with notifications from angry employees and concerned executives. Ignoring them, he leaned forward and typed furiously, attempting to access the Opera House's network remotely. To his dismay, the connection kept failing. Something, or someone, was blocking him. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration mounting. How could this have happened, and why tonight of all nights? Just then, his assistant, Lisa Monroe, burst into the room. Her face was flushed and she looked out of breath. "Daniel, you need to see this," she said urgently, holding up her tablet. He took the device and scrolled through the documents she had pulled up. They contained internal logs from the Opera House's AI system, including timestamps and user activity records. One entry stood out: a spike in data traffic originating from Karoline Leavitt's neural implant shortly before the firings occurred. "This doesn't make sense," Daniel said, frowning. "Her implant shouldn't even interact with the Opera House's systems. It's not designed for that." "Well, something triggered it," Lisa replied. "And whatever it was, it activated Directive 47. Do you know what that is?" Daniel hesitated. Directive 47 wasn't widely known. It was a fail-safe mechanism embedded in his company's neural implants to prevent unethical behavior. If the AI detected actions deemed harmful or malicious, it would intervene accordingly. In theory, it was supposed to protect users, but in practice, it had never been tested on such a large scale. "I'll fix this," Daniel said firmly, though doubt lingered in his voice. "I'll shut down the directive and restore everyone's access." Lisa shook her head. "It's not that simple. Look at these reports." She pointed to another document showing how the directive had spread beyond the Opera House. Other venues connected to the same network were also experiencing disruptions. Concert halls, theaters, and sports arenas were reporting similar incidents. Employees locked out, systems malfunctioning, events canceled. Daniel's stomach sank. This wasn't just a local issue anymore. It was spiraling out of control. Back at the Opera House, Ethan decided to take matters into his own hands. While most of the former staff dispersed, too overwhelmed to act, he stayed behind. He wandered around the perimeter of the building, searching for a way inside. After a few minutes, he found an open service entrance partially hidden behind a dumpster. Slipping through the narrow gap, he entered a dimly lit corridor. The silence inside was eerie, broken only by the faint hum of machinery. He moved cautiously, avoiding cameras and security sensors. His goal was simple: find out what was causing this mess and stop it. After navigating several twists and turns, Ethan reached the control room. The door was locked, but he managed to bypass the security panel using tools he always carried in his pocket. Inside, rows of monitors displayed streams of code and error messages. One screen caught his attention. It showed a map of interconnected venues, each marked with a flashing red dot indicating a breach. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. This wasn't just about the Opera House. It was part of something much larger, a chain reaction spreading across the city. And judging by the timestamps, it had all started with Karoline Leavitt's implant. As he examined the data, a new alert popped up on the screen. Warning: unauthorized access detected. Initiating lockdown protocol. Oh no, Ethan whispered. Before he could react, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Moments later, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Security drones were coming for him. Thinking quickly, Ethan grabbed a flash drive from his pocket and plugged it into the nearest computer. He copied as much data as he could onto the drive, hoping it would provide clues to unravel the mystery. Then, clutching the flash drive tightly, he slipped out of the control room and disappeared into the shadows. Outside, the city buzzed with rumors. Social media platforms lit up with posts about the mysterious firings, sparking outrage and conspiracy theories. Some blamed corporate greed, others accused hackers. Few suspected the truth: that a tiny malfunction in one woman's neural implant had set off a cascade of events threatening to bring an entire industry to its knees. And somewhere in the midst of it all, Ethan Cole held the key to understanding what had gone wrong. But stopping it would require help and courage he wasn't sure he possessed. Ethan Cole sat alone in his tiny apartment, staring at the flash drive he had taken from the Opera House control room. The small device felt heavy in his hand, as if it carried the weight of everything that had gone wrong that night. He knew he couldn't handle this situation by himself. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than him and possibly more dangerous. He plugged the flash drive into his laptop and began sifting through the files. Most of them were technical jargon he didn't fully understand, but one document stood out. It was labeled Directive 47 and contained a detailed explanation of its purpose. According to the file, Directive 47 was designed to prevent unethical behavior among users of neural implants. If the AI detected actions deemed harmful or manipulative, it would intervene, sometimes drastically. Ethan frowned as he read further. The directive wasn't supposed to affect people who didn't have neural implants, yet somehow it had targeted innocent employees at the Opera House and beyond. Something or someone had caused the system to malfunction on a massive scale. As he scrolled through the data, another name caught his eye: Daniel Harper. Ethan recognized the name immediately. Harper was a well-known tech entrepreneur whose company developed neural implants, the same technology that seemed to be at the center of this disaster. This can't be a coincidence, Ethan muttered to himself. He pulled up a news article about Harper on his phone. The article mentioned that Harper's wife, Karoline Leavitt, had been involved in a heated argument at the Opera House earlier that evening. Could her implant have triggered the chaos? Before Ethan could think further, there was a knock at his door. Startled, he quickly closed the laptop and hid the flash drive under a stack of papers. Peering through the peephole, he saw Lisa Monroe standing outside. She looked anxious, glancing over her shoulder as if she expected someone to follow her. "Who is it?" Ethan asked cautiously. "It's Lisa," she replied softly. "From Daniel Harper's office. I need to talk to you." Ethereal hesitated for a moment before unlocking the door. Lisa stepped inside, her eyes darting around the room. You're Ethan Cole, right? The stagehand from the Opera House? Yes, Ethan said warily. What do you want? Lisa took a deep breath. I know what happened last night, and I think we can help each other. Ethan crossed his arms. Help how? You work for Harper. Aren't you part of the problem? I'm not proud of my job, Lisa admitted, but I've seen enough to know something isn't right. Daniel created Directive 47, but he never intended for it to spiral out of control like this. Someone tampered with the system, and I think I know who. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Who? Rachel Bennett, Lisa said. She's a rival entrepreneur who's been trying to sabotage Daniel's company for months. She was spotted near the Opera House earlier that day. Ethan nodded slowly. It made sense. Someone powerful enough to exploit the technology might have wanted to cause trouble. But he still wasn't sure whether to trust Lisa. For all he knew, she could be setting him up. Why should I believe you? He asked bluntly. Because I want to fix this, Lisa said earnestly. Thousands of people are losing their jobs because of this mess. I don't care about protecting Daniel anymore. I care about stopping whoever did this. Her words struck a chord with Ethan. He had spent years working backstage, unnoticed and unappreciated. Now he had a chance to make a difference, not just for himself, but for everyone affected by the firings. Fine, Ethan said finally, but we'll do this my way. Together they devised a plan. Their first step was to recruit others, who might have the skills and resources to help. Lisa suggested reaching out to Sarah Mitchell, a cybersecurity expert known for exposing corporate scandals. Though initially reluctant, Sarah agreed to join them after hearing the details. The group also brought in Alex Rivera, a journalist eager to uncover the truth behind the firings. With his connections and investigative skills, Alex could gather information while keeping the public informed without revealing too much. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the central server farm where the AI controlling Directive 47 operated. Located deep within Manhattan, the facility was heavily guarded by advanced security robots. Breaking in wouldn't be easy, but they had no other choice. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to prepare. Sarah analyzed the data Ethan had retrieved, identifying vulnerabilities in the AI system. Lisa used her access to Daniel's company to gather blueprints of the server farm and intel on its defenses. Meanwhile, Alex spread carefully crafted rumors online to distract attention from their real objective. On the night of the operation, the group met in an abandoned warehouse near the server farm. Dressed in dark clothing and armed with tools provided by Sarah, they reviewed their plan one last time. We only get one shot at this, Sarah reminded them. If we fail, the AI will retaliate even harder. No pressure, Alex joked, nervously. They approached the facility cautiously, sticking to the shadows to avoid detection. Security drones patrolled the perimeter, their mechanical eyes scanning for intruders. Using a device Sarah had built, Lisa disabled the cameras temporarily, giving the group a narrow window to slip inside. Once inside, they moved quickly through the labyrinthine corridors guided by the blueprints Lisa had memorized. The air was cold and sterile, filled with the faint hum of machinery. Every step echoed ominously, heightening their tension. Finally, they reached the core processor room. A thick steel door blocked their path, requiring a biometric scan to open. Lisa placed her hand on the scanner, hoping her credentials as an employee would grant access. After a tense moment, the door hissed open. Inside, rows of servers blinked with lights, their circuits pulsing with energy. At the center stood the main terminal, a sleek console surrounded by protective glass. This was the heart of the AI system. Sarah got to work immediately, connecting her laptop to the terminal. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as she attempted to disable Directive 47. But just as she was making progress, alarms blared throughout the facility. "They know we're here," Alex shouted. Security drones poured into the room, their weapons trained on the group. Ethan and Lisa grabbed makeshift tools to fend them off, buying time for Sarah to finish her task. "Almost done," Sarah yelled, her fingers flying across the keyboard. One drone lunged at Lisa, knocking her to the ground. Without hesitation, Ethan threw himself at the machine, smashing it with a metal pipe. Sparks flew as the drone collapsed, lifeless. Suddenly, Lisa let out a cry of pain. A shard of broken glass had pierced her leg, pinning her to the floor. Blood seeped through her jeans as she struggled to free herself. "Go," she urged Ethan. "Don't stop for me." Ethan hesitated, torn between helping Lisa and completing the mission. Then, with a grim determination, he turned back to Sarah. "Finish it." With tears in her eyes, Sarah typed the final command. The screens flickered and the hum of the servers faded. For a moment, everything went silent. "It's done," Sarah whispered, but their victory came at a cost. As the group fled the facility, leaving Lisa behind, Ethan couldn't shake the guilt weighing on his chest. They had succeeded in disabling the AI, but at what price? Ethan, Sarah, and Alex stumbled out of the server farm, their hearts pounding as they fled into the cold night. The facility's alarms still blared behind them, but the chaos inside had subsided. Directive 47 was disabled, at least for now. Yet none of them felt relief. Lisa was still trapped inside, injured and alone. "We can't just leave her," Ethan said, his voice trembling with guilt. He stopped in his tracks, glancing back toward the building. "She sacrificed herself. For us." Sarah grabbed his arm firmly, pulling him forward. "We can't help her if we get caught too. We need to regroup and figure out our next move." Alex nodded in agreement. She knew what she was doing. Right now we owe it to her to finish this. Reluctantly, Ethan followed them into the shadows. They moved quickly, avoiding the security drones that continued to patrol the area. Once they reached a safe distance, they ducked into an alleyway to catch their breath. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, each lost in their thoughts. Ethan clenched his fists, replaying Lisa's final words in his mind. She had told them to keep going no matter what. But how could he live with himself knowing she was left behind? "Okay," Sarah said, finally breaking the silence. "Here's what we know so far. Directive 47 has been shut down, which means the AI shouldn't be able to target anyone else. But the system is still vulnerable. If someone doesn't fix it properly, this could happen again. And Rachel Bennett is still out there," Alex added. "If she was behind this, she'll try something else. We need proof before we go public." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we find her, and we make sure everyone knows the truth." Meanwhile, back at the server farm, Lisa lay on the cold floor, her leg throbbing with pain. She had managed to drag herself into a corner, away from the main terminal. The shard of glass was lodged deep in her thigh, and every movement sent waves of agony through her body. Despite the pain, her mind raced. She couldn't let herself be captured, not now. Not when they were so close to exposing the truth. After what felt like hours, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Lisa tensed, bracing herself for the worst. But instead of security drones, a familiar face appeared in the doorway. "Daniel?" she whispered, barely able to believe her eyes. Daniel Harper stepped into the room, his expression unreadable. "What have you done, Lisa?" "I didn't do anything," she snapped, wincing as she shifted her weight. "You're the one who created this mess." Daniel knelt beside her, inspecting her wound. "I'm not here to argue. I came because I saw your access logs. You've been working with Ethan Cole, haven't you?" Lisa hesitated. There was no point denying it. "Yes, and if you think I'm sorry, you're wrong. Someone needed to stop this before it got worse." Daniel sighed heavily, pulling a first aid kit from his bag. "You don't understand. This wasn't supposed to happen. Directive 47 was designed to protect people, not hurt them." "Well, it failed," Lisa shot back bitterly. "And now thousands of innocent people are paying the price." As Daniel bandaged her leg, Lisa studied him carefully. For the first time, she saw cracks in his polished exterior. He looked tired, haunted even. Maybe he wasn't entirely to blame for what had happened. But that didn't excuse his role in creating the technology that caused the disaster. "What are you going to do now?" she asked cautiously. "I'm going to fix this," Daniel replied firmly. "But I can't do it alone. If you want to help, you'll have to trust me." Lisa hesitated. Trusting Daniel felt like a risk she couldn't afford to take. but she also knew they couldn't undo the damage without his expertise. "Fine," she said finally. "But if you double-cross us, I swear I'll make sure the world knows everything." Daniel nodded grimly. "Fair enough." The next morning, news of the server farm breach spread like wildfire. Social media buzzed with speculation about who was responsible. Some praised the mysterious hackers for disabling Directive 47, while others condemned them for risking lives. Amid the chaos, Alex published an article revealing partial details of the operation. He omitted names and specifics, focusing instead on the broader implications of unchecked AI technology. Public outrage grew, putting pressure on corporations and government officials to address the crisis. Protesters gathered outside tech companies, demanding accountability and transparency. Among them was Ethan, who used the opportunity to rally support for the displaced employees. While Ethan worked to rebuild trust, Sarah focused on securing evidence against Rachel Bennett. Using data recovered from the server farm, she traced several suspicious transactions linked to Bennett's company. It seemed Rachel had paid off insiders to tamper with Karoline Leavitt's neural implant, a deliberate act of sabotage aimed at discrediting Daniel Harper. Armed with this information, the group met secretly to discuss their next steps. They agreed that exposing Rachel would require more than just leaked documents. They needed irrefutable proof that could stand up in court. "We need to confront her directly," Ethan said. "Get her to admit what she did." "That's risky," Sarah warned. "If she realizes we're onto her, she'll cover her tracks." "It's the only way," Ethan insisted. "We've come this far. We can't back down now." Reluctantly, the others agreed. They decided to set a trap, luring Rachel into a meeting under false pretenses. With Alex's help, they arranged for a fake interview with a major news outlet, claiming to discuss advancements in AI ethics. Rachel, eager to boost her reputation, accepted without hesitation. On the day of the meeting, Ethan, Sarah, and Alex arrived early, positioning themselves strategically around the venue. Hidden cameras recorded everything, ensuring they wouldn't miss a single word. When Rachel entered the room, flanked by her entourage, she exuded confidence. "Thank you for having me," she said smoothly, taking her seat. "I'm thrilled to share my insights on ethical technology." Before she could continue, Ethan stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying the incriminating evidence. "Save it, Rachel. We know what you did." Rachel froze, her smile faltering. "What are you talking about?" "You sabotaged Karoline Leavitt's implant," Ethan accused. "You wanted to ruin Daniel Harper and his company. Well, guess what? Your plan backfired." For a moment, Rachel looked genuinely shocked. Then her expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. This goes far beyond me or Daniel." "What does that mean?" Sarah demanded. Rachel leaned back in her chair, smirking. "Let's just say there are bigger players involved, people who won't hesitate to silence anyone who gets in their way." Her words sent a chill through the room. Before they could press further, alarms blared overhead. Security forces stormed the building, surrounding them within seconds. "Looks like your little game is over," Rachel sneered, standing up triumphantly. "Enjoy prison." As the guards closed in, Ethan exchanged a glance with Sarah and Alex. They had exposed the truth, but at a cost. Now they would face the consequences together. Back at the Opera House, life began to return to normal. Employees regained access to their accounts and events resumed without interruption. Michelle Obama returned briefly to thank the staff for their resilience during the crisis. Though many questions remained unanswered, hope lingered in the air. For Ethan and his friends, the fight was far from over, but they had proven one thing. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, ordinary people could stand up to power and win. The room was tense, with security forces closing in and Rachel Bennett standing tall, her smirk growing wider by the second. Ethan, Sarah, and Alex stood frozen, their minds racing for a way out. They had exposed Rachel's plot, but now they were trapped. The cameras hidden around the room continued to record, capturing every word. "You think this is over?" Rachel said, crossing her arms confidently. "You've dug your own graves." Ethan clenched his fists, refusing to back down. Even if you silence us, the truth is already out there. People know what you did. Rachel laughed coldly. Do they? All I see are three nobodies trying to play hero. No one will believe you without proof. And thanks to my friends here, that proof won't exist much longer. One of the guards moved toward Ethan, grabbing him roughly by the arm. Another approached Sarah, who held the tablet containing the evidence. She hesitated for a moment, then smashed it against the floor, shattering the screen into pieces. No! Rachel screamed, lunging forward. But it was too late. The data was gone, or so she thought. Unbeknownst to Rachel, Sarah had uploaded everything to a secure cloud server moments before entering the room. Even as the guards dragged them away, Sarah exchanged a subtle glance with Alex, who nodded slightly. Their backup plan was still intact. Hours later, Ethan, Sarah, and Alex found themselves locked in separate holding cells deep within an underground facility. The walls were bare concrete, and the air smelled damp and stale. Despite the grim surroundings, Ethan refused to give up hope. He replayed Sarah's earlier actions in his mind, piecing together what must have happened. She had destroyed the tablet to buy them time, but not to erase the evidence. Think, Ethan, he muttered to himself. There has to be a way out of this. As if on cue, the door to his cell creaked open. A figure stepped inside, silhouetted by the dim light from the hallway. It took Ethan a moment to recognize Daniel Harper. What are you doing here? Ethan asked warily. I came to help, Daniel replied, stepping closer. Lisa told me everything. I owe all of you an apology for creating the technology that caused this mess, and I want to make things right. Ethan studied him carefully, searching for any sign of deception. Why should we trust you? Because I'm part of this now, Daniel said firmly. If Rachel gets away with what she's done, it'll only get worse, for everyone. After a long pause, Ethan nodded reluctantly. Fine. What's the plan? Daniel explained that he had bribed several guards to gain access to the facility. With his help, they could free Sarah and Alex and escape before reinforcements arrived, but they had to act quickly. Together, they moved through the corridors, avoiding patrols and disabling security cameras along the way. When they reached Sarah's cell, she greeted them with a mix of relief and skepticism. You brought Harper? She asked, raising an eyebrow. He's helping, Ethan said simply. For now. They freed Alex next, and the group regrouped in a small utility room. There, Daniel revealed the final piece of the puzzle, a portable hard drive containing a full copy of the AI system's logs, including Rachel's tampering. He handed it to Alex. This is your ticket to bringing her down, Daniel said. Make sure it reaches the right people. Alex nodded solemnly. It will. With the hard drive secured, the group prepared to leave. Daniel led them through a hidden exit that opened into an alleyway behind the building. As they emerged into the cool night air, Ethan felt a surge of determination. They weren't just survivors, they were fighters. Over the next few days, Alex worked tirelessly to distribute the evidence. He sent copies to trusted journalists, government officials, and watchdog organizations. Within hours, the story exploded across every major news outlet. Headlines accused Rachel Bennett of orchestrating the Opera House firings and manipulating neural implant technology for personal gain. Public outrage reached a fever pitch. Protesters gathered outside Rachel's headquarters demanding justice. Law enforcement launched an investigation, raiding her offices and seizing documents. By the end of the week, Rachel was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and cybercrime. But the fallout didn't stop there. The scandal forced corporations to reevaluate their use of AI technology. Governments introduced stricter regulations to prevent similar incidents in the future, and Daniel Harper, once vilified for his role in creating Directive 47, became an advocate for ethical innovation. Karoline Leavitt, humbled by the ordeal, issued a public apology for her behavior at the Opera House. She vowed to support initiatives aimed at protecting workers' rights and ensuring accountability in tech development. Months later, life began to return to normal, or at least as close to normal as possible. The Opera House reopened its doors, hosting performances that celebrated human creativity rather than relying on holograms and AI. Former employees returned to work, greeted with cheers and applause from grateful audiences. Ethan stood backstage, during one such performance watching as the curtain rose to reveal a packed auditorium. He felt a sense of pride knowing he had played a part in restoring balance, not just to the Opera House but to the world. Sarah joined him, leaning against the wall with a satisfied smile. "We did it, huh?" "We did," Ethan replied, nodding. "But we couldn't have done it alone." Alex appeared a moment later holding a newspaper with Rachel Bennett's mugshot plastered on the front page. "Looks like karma caught up with her." They shared a laugh, savoring the moment. Though scars remained from the chaos they had endured, they also carried lessons about resilience, teamwork, and the power of ordinary people to challenge even the most daunting odds. As the music swelled on stage, Ethan glanced at his friends. Together they had faced impossible challenges and emerged stronger. Whatever the future held, he knew they would face it head-on, because they had proven that humanity, flawed though it might be, was capable of incredible things.